So Pete, maybe you can share a little bit about how'd you even get into this practice? I mean, it's not like you woke up one day saying, I'm going to be an insurance agent as a kid.
No, no. I wanted to be an attorney, which I don't know which is worse when I was younger, but so I was a senior in college, and my roommate at the time was working at a captive as like a glorified intern, you know. So that was like my first like real look at the insurance world. And I don't know, at the time I think he was making like 20 or 30 grand a year, which in college was like $1 million. So
Yeah.
I was like, oh, let me do that. So I got licensed in 2010, and I had to write down 200, 300 people that you knew, and then they were like, all right, go sling them some insurance. And I was like, the hell. So that was the first stint, and I went from a captive to eventually independent in 2012. I was really good at selling the dream back in the day because just like anything else, it's multi-level marketing, whether you're insurance, real estate, everything's a pyramid, or a
Oh yeah.
glorified pyramid, right? So I was really good at selling the dream, but not so good at living it. So I recruited a bunch of bad apples, and between like roll-up debt, the mortgage that I had, the 1 Series BMW convertible that I couldn't afford at the time, I was probably like 90, 95 grand in the hole at the end of 2012. So that's to your point, Roy, the not so fun things that nobody talks about because they see the
Right.
watch or the glitz or the glamour or the trips or whatever. But it was a hard lesson to learn at a ripe old age of 23, 24 years old,
Yeah, I mean, most people they may have college debt at that time, but you branched
Mhm.
out, created this business, and that's very similar to what I did too. I racked up a bunch of debt also, but I mean, $95,000—that's a lot of money even in today's value. And it's like you were selling this dream and living it. You could see it happening, but then it wasn't coming to fruition in the dollar side of things, and
Right.
that's a huge discouragement. Like most people would be like, all right, forget this. It doesn't work out. I'm not going to do it. And I'm just going to go ahead and quit. But what kept you hanging in there and still wanting to sell insurance after being in debt like that?
To your point, I saw a lot of dum-dums in our industry making millions of
Yeah.
dollars. So I was like, what is wrong with me that I can't get there? So, I mean, I scratched and clawed my way out of it after like 18 to 20 months, but I was flipping shoes and Pokemon cards. I worked as a W-2 for a small captive P&C agency for a little while, making like dog shit salary plus commission, like anything that I could do because any life policy that I wrote, like you experienced in the past too, went to debt. So it
Yeah.
wasn't like real. I was eating ramen noodles on a daily basis, and me and my wife, or girlfriend at the time, our dates were like Netflix and chill. And that
Yeah.
was pretty much it.
And you're
Um,
using somebody else's login, right?
yeah, I 100% use someone else's login. I moved back in with my parents. I lived in the basement, like
Uh,
the true rags to riches story. And I know mine was a lot less worse than other people's too, but it definitely sucked. But to get back to your question, it was mainly because I could see, to your point, other people out there absolutely crushing it and being like, this dude's not better than me. This girl's not better than me. Like, I don't understand why they're making millions and I'm not. So you just had to stay the course. And in the time that I was in that debt, or I felt like a real piece of shit, it felt like forever. But looking back now, after being in the industry, I think we started pretty much at the same time, like 13 and a half years,
yeah.
right? That 18 to 20 months was kind of a blip on the overall radar of our entire career. So when you're in it, it feels like eternity, but when you're looking back, it's really not that long. It was like 10% of my entire, insurance career.
Exactly. And that's the other thing to think about that too. When you go through a bad situation or a bad time or business is tough, it's not going to be forever unless you allow it to be. I remember like getting really, really excited selling a big life insurance policy, and I was in debt. I maxed out cards to buy mortgage protection leads. Nothing was coming to fruition. I tried to buy all this marketing program, and people would cancel their policies on me in the very
Mhm.
beginning. I remember selling this nice, big, juicy life insurance policy. I was so stoked. And, people are like, why are you doing this? So like, you're not making any money. It's not for you. And I was like, no, I think I can do this. I sold this big policy. It's like a $5,000 commission. And back then that was life changing. I'm like, oh my God, if I just do $5,000 a month, I could retire, because it's back in college time frame. Right.
Yep.
And that person ended up canceling the policy. They said, you know what? We decided it wasn't for us. Completely crushed me, because I needed those commissions to pay back chargeback debt and a credit card. I had no other options. Like, this is absolutely insane. And it felt like this was my whole entire life, right? Like it was a bad trip I was going through, and I wasn't going to get out of this thing. But what I did is I internalized that. I'm like, I see these other people up on stage or doing it, and I'm like, they're cool, but I am cooler than them. I am better than, I know that. How in the hell are they making that much money? And I know I could do way better than that. So that was the main driver for me. I mean, I know it's not a good thing necessarily to compare yourself to others, but I did that 100% of the time. I was just like, that person's doing it, they're successful, there's no reason why I can't be. And I'm a slow learner, late bloomer. It took me a long time. And so when that event happened to me, I went back through all the old leads, like the B lead, C lead. I mean, these were like F- leads. And I finally was able to sell like 3 tiny little final expense policies that equated to that 5,000 to get me out. Then I immediately reinvested it back into the business. And I think that's a problem that a lot of agents have, or just independent entrepreneurs. They don't invest back into the business because they go, well, how are you growing so fast? Well, every dollar that I make, I could basically qualify for food stamps because I put all my money back into the business, right? To help grow it and scale it. And a lot of agents, they're just cheap. I mean, they're too cheap. You have a training program, I have a training program, and sometimes we get pushback on $97 a month.